Hello, everybody. We're going to let people get in. I hope everybody is having a great night. Welcome to Fast News. We're going to let some people get in before we dive. We have an interesting program for you today as my cat continues to rub up on my leg. We have a very interesting program for you guys today. And you guys know me. Let me just share this to my personal Facebook as well. And then we will get going. Again, I hope everyone's having a great day. So we have a couple stories. Of course, the Buffalo Common Council is today's hot story and going to be my main story that I spend the most time on, so it's going to be a little bit later on. We're going to start with France's new law, and then we have a story about an actor. And then we also have, we have a closing story as well that, to kind of maybe not lighten the mood, but maybe, make people feel a little bit better after we talk about the Common Council. So I hope everyone's having a good day. Let's get in. Our lead story tonight comes courtesy of France. French officials have proposed a new law under the drafted law that was tabled in Parliament by President Emmanuel Macron's governing La République En Marche party, sharing images of on-duty police with the aim of harming their physical or psychological integrity will be punishable with up to 1 year in prison and a maximum of 45,000 euros, which is the equivalent to 53,360 American dollars. Other items in the bill include allowing police to use high-powered cameras on drones and give them easier access to CCTV footage. People opposed to the law say this will prevent journalists from doing their job and it'll make it harder to hold police accountable, with journalist unions also saying it could give police a green light to prevent them from doing their work and potentially document the abuses by security forces. Hi, guys. An amendment clarifies that press freedom should in no way be hindered by the proposed measures. French media are also concerned about Sylvester, can you stop? Sorry, guys. About potential rights abuses via use of drones to watch demonstrations and facial recognition technology linked to surveillance cameras, which has already been used by the Chinese government in protest in Hong Kong. The United Human Rights Council has also made an extraordinary intervention to critique the immeasurable problems of the bill and called for French's politicians to not support it. Claire Hendon, France's human rights defender and independent administrative authority, but they are appointed by the president, has said in a statement, the legislation poses a considerable risk infringing several fundamental rights, in particular, the right to privacy and freedom of information. Those that support the bill have said police deserve the right to privacy and safety, both in their professional and private life. Prime Minister Jean Castex has also said this would remove any ambiguity on the intention to guarantee respect for public freedoms while better protecting those police who ensure the protection of the population. The French police are not new to criticism. In fact, France's policing problems are pretty well known and nothing new. Protests against police brutality have been in full swing in France this summer, both with the Yellow Vest and with other groups protesting against the French police violence and systematic racism and oppression for a few years now. Yeah, Sylvester, yeah, I know, guys. She steals the show. She's adorable. All right, so our next story is about Ricky Schroeder. Ricky Schroeder is an actor who helped bail Kyle Rittenhouse out of jail and was very public about it, including taking a photo with the kid and calling, including taking a photo with the kid. But he called police about threats he was receiving on social media, none of which were considered life-threatening or serious in nature by the responding officers. So they took a suspicious circumstances report and left the scene. I have read some of the tweets and comments, and they are pretty bad. However, I've been getting death threats and stuff all summer, and I don't even have millions of dollars. So if I could take it, you could definitely take it, bro. All right, now on to my next story here. The Buffalo Common Council, guys. This is a fun one. Buffalo Common Council had a meeting today. It was horrible. The ineptitude of the Common Council has never been more apparent than it was today. The many issues were watched on by about 80 or 90 people, including myself, on the council's Facebook live stream of the meeting. The issues arose when council started talking about item 8 on the agenda. Item 8 was to approve the conditions of the SAS contract. All right, the contract is set to cost $2.2 million over 3 years, $1.3 million in the first year, which $500,000 of which is one-time purchases needed in the first year of the contract, and then $8,000 each year through the life of the contract. Yeah, it was bad, Cordy. This was worse than than it usually is. The SAS Institute, Inc. would create a data analysis center that would use a cloud-based system to examine city practices and use predictive modeling to determine the best practices. The Buffalo Police Department would be the first to use the new technology. SAS will also be providing residents with opportunities to learn data science skills as part of a workforce development effort that will not have an additional cost to the city. Now that we have the basic idea of item 8, let's talk about where this all went wrong. This was mentioned to be approved, like as they started. They motioned to approve it basically right away. So this was motioned to be approved as soon as the item came up, which usually if you watch these meetings, you know that starts the voting. When they motion to approve something and they do it right away, it starts the voting. Council member Wyatt was actually the first person who started talking about his budgeting concerns and was later joined in by Council member Nowowski and his concerns about being locked into a contract despite knowing if the funds needed to properly fund the project were guaranteed, which they are not, because the funds set to pay the SAS contract are dependent on a federal stimulus funds to the city of Buffalo, okay? The contract has a clause built in it. If we do not get money, if we do not get the stimulus money, then the contract does not have to be honored. It's built right into it. However, the council members were concerned, say we get 1 million, say we only get $1. That's technically a federal stimulus. How are we supposed to balance the budget if we don't know if it's going to cover the $2.2 million? And Councilmember Rivera said, well, at what point do we actually have, it wasn't clear in the wording, at what point do we actually have to pay this contract? Wyatt and Nowowski were also joined by Bowman in their concerns, and they had the no vote on it. However, it did pass. Others who shared their concerns, such as Councilmember Pridgeon, weighed in and said, we can add conditions if needed, but his concerns, we can add conditions if needed, right? And Ms. Gordon, who is the legal person, the legal expert, advisor, whatever, that is paid, is employed by the Common Council, said it could be done, but we were worried SAS might not honor the contract then as those previously, because of the previously unagreed to terms. So that is the concern. That was the concern she shared. Pridgeon pushed the vote through in a mess of confusion. I mean, a mess of confusion. It was very unclear what was going on to everybody watching. And for those of you who did watch, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to explain. So he pushed the vote through in a mess of confusion as council members didn't seem to know what was actually being voted on, as the exchange was long and confusing, but understanding in the meeting seemed to be that they could add conditions after it was voted on. That seemed to be the understanding on the meeting. Ms. Gordon didn't inform everyone until after the vote was concluded and passed that this could not be revisited or have conditions added to it after it is passed. That was not stated until after it happened, right after it was passed. It was not. And that is when Councilmember Rivera said, at what point do we get enough stimulus money that we have to enter the agreement? And this is, again, after it passed. So they're asking these questions after it passed. They're having these important discussions after it passed, after it already made the agenda. These are conversations that they should have had before the contract was even put on the Finance Committee's table a week ago to move it to this point. This is an absolute mess. The City Council's ineptitude has never been more clear than it was in that instance. I shared the entire 23-minute exchange on the Rips Reports page on Facebook. You guys should watch that. It is a mess. All right, now let's get to our last story to cool down a bit. 102 people connected to two white supremacist gangs are now facing charges as part of an investigation by state and federal authorities in California. According to ABC 30, the investigation, dubbed Operation Lucky Charm, initially targeted both the Fresno-based street gang, the Fresnex, sorry, that name gets me every time, and the prison-based Aryan Brotherhood. Authorities on both the federal and local level took part in the over 11-month investigation, with the primary focus being on cutting off lines of distribution for guns and drugs. A significant aspect of this investigation was the specific effort to identify sources of supply for guns, narcotics, and to stop acts of violence in their pre-planning stage, Fresno County Sheriff Margaret Mims told reporters at a news conference. As a result of the investigation, $136,000 in cash, 90 pounds of methamphetamines, 47 firearms, 6 pounds of heroin were all confiscated by the authorities. Authorities have been said that the investigation led to the leadership of the Aryan Brotherhood being completely dismantled. In addition to targeting supply lines, the investigation also prevented contraband from entering state prisons. Authority alleged that member gangs would get the drugs and cell phones into prisons by stuffing them into sports balls. So there you guys have it. That's today's Fast News. I spent a little bit more time on the Common Council than I wanted to, so I have a story I worked hard on. It's long though, and I didn't want to add it to this one because this is called Fast News on is Canada's government actually using propaganda on its own citizens? And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. That's going to be our opening story. You guys have a great day.